The black void of deep space stretched endlessly around the human exploration ship Aurora's Edge. No planets, no stars bright enough to give comfort, just cold darkness. Captain Elias Rourke stood at the command deck, eyes fixed on the strange object drifting ahead. It was a ship alien design, long and curved like a silver blade. Its hull reflected faint light from the Aurora's Edge's spotlights, but no running lights glowed. No movement, no signs of life. Lieutenant Maravos checked her sensors. Captain, it's dead in the water. No power signatures, no heat output. But the structure's intact. No battle scars, no meteor impacts. Rourke frowned. So why is it just floating here? He tapped the com. Engineering, hold position. I want to scan for hazards before we get too close. The results came back clear. No radiation, no minefields, no automated defenses. The alien vessel was as still as a tomb. Prepare a boarding party, Rourke ordered. We're going to see what happened. The airlock door of Aurora's Edge opened with a metallic hiss. A team of 6 humans stepped out in sealed suits, magnetic boots clicking on the alien hull. Their visors, the ship's surface seemed almost too smooth, like it had been grown rather than built. Strange markings ran along its sides, some glowing faintly before fading. Lieutenant Voss led the team inside, through an open hatch. The corridor beyond was lit only by their helmet lamps. The air was bitterly cold, mist curling with each movement. Smells sterile, said crewman Hahn, his voice echoing in comes. Decay, no rot, like it's been scrubbed clean. They walked deeper. No bodies. No signs of struggle. Every room looked like it had been abandoned mid-use. Half-played card game lay on a table. Bowls of food sat untouched. In one corner, a steaming mug of something still gave off a faint curl of heat. This doesn't make sense, Voss whispered. There's no power, but the food's still warm. As they moved through the ship, they began noticing something strange. Markings scratched into the walls. Not carved by tools, but gouged out in frantic strokes, as if made by claws or bare hands. Crewman Amani bent close to one set. These aren't just alien letters. This is multiple languages. Some of them I recognize from trade hubs. She looked uneasy. This one's standard. English, it says. Fear the silent ones. They found the phrase repeated dozens of times, each in a different language. Some were written in blood, others burned into the walls. The deeper they went, the colder it became. Their breath fogged their visors. Every sound, footsteps, suit servos, even the faint hum of oxygen pumps, seemed too loud in the crushing silence. Then Hans stopped suddenly. Did you hear that? He asked. What? Everyone froze. Hear what? Voss replied. Breathing, Han whispered, slow, deep, like right behind us. They turned their lights into the darkness. Nothing. Just the empty corridor, stretching into shadow. Stay sharp, Rourke ordered through the com from the Aurora's Edge. His voice was steady, but his grip on the command rail tightened. The boarding team finished their sweep and returned to the airlock. No bodies. No. Log entries. No sign of where the crew had gone. Only the untouched rooms, the scratched warnings, and that cold silence. Back on the Aurora's Edge, the boarding party removed their helmets, faces pale, hands shaking. Captain, we need to leave this sector, Voss said firmly. Something's wrong. This isn't just a derelict. It's a warning. Rourke nodded. Agreed. Set course away from this ship, full burn. As the Aurora's Edge pulled away, the alien vessel grew smaller on the viewing screen, fading into the void like a ghost. Hours later, as the crew settled back into routine, the bridge lights flickered. Communications Officer Darren looked. Up sharply, Captain. We're getting a transmission. From where? Rourke asked. Darren's face drained of color. From our ship, internal signal. Play it, Rourke ordered. A crackle filled the speakers. Then a voice came through, deep, calm, and terrifyingly familiar. It was Captain Elias Rourke's own voice. They're already here, it whispered. The crew went silent. Every eye turned to the captain. He stared at the com panel, his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. The transmission ended. The ship's lights returned to normal. Somewhere in the cold black, beyond their hull, something was watching. Whispers in the dark, the crew of the Aurora's Edge sat in the mess hall, silent. No one touched their food. No one spoke about what they'd seen. Captain Elias Rourke stared at the table in front of him, his hands clenched. The voice they'd heard, his voice still echoed in his mind. It was impossible. He hadn't recorded any message. And yet, the CUM system had played it as if it were live. Lieutenant Mara Voss finally broke the silence. "Captain, maybe it was a prank? Some old recording?" Rourke's eyes lifted slowly. "Do you think I'd joke about that?" The air in the room felt heavy. Something about that alien ship had followed them back. Hours later, Engineer Damon Hale was in the engine room running diagnostics. The hum of the ship's core was steady, but he kept hearing faint noises between the vibrations, like someone breathing just behind him. He spun around. No one. He turned back to his console, forcing himself to focus. Then the lights flickered. The screen in front of him scrambled, static buzzing in his ears. The distortion cleared, replaced by text. Not in any human language. But Damon recognized one of the symbols, the same from the alien ship's walls. The letters pulsed on the screen as if alive. Then they rearranged themselves into English. "We see you, Damon." Stumbled back. The light steadied, the screen returned to normal, the core hummed like nothing had happened. He ran straight to the bridge. Captain Rourke listened carefully as Damon explained. Mara was at the CUM station, scanning for signals. "There's nothing on the sensor," she said, shaking her head. "No transmissions, no ships nearby. We're alone." Rourke stood at the center of the bridge, his jaw tight. "We're not alone. You're here, Captain Damon," said voice low. "What if they're inside the ship?" The words hung in the air like a weight. That night, if you could call it night in deep space, Medic Kirilau was checking the storage bay for supplies when she noticed something odd. A crate had been moved. She knew every container's position by memory. This one had been dragged several feet from where it was secured. No one was assigned to the bay tonight. She bent down to inspect it. On the side, someone had scratched a symbol into the metal, the same alien mark again. Kira's heartbeat quickened. She reached for her CUM to call Rourke. But then she heard it, the breathing, slow, heavy, right behind her. She froze. "Who's there?" she whispered. No answer. She turned fast, and the air seemed thicker. Shadows clung to the corners like oil. And in the deepest dark, between the crates, something moved. Not footsteps, not a person. It was like the shadow itself shifted, stretching along the wall. Her CUM crackled, and she heard Captain Rourke's voice again. But wrong this time. Slower, colder. "Kira, don't. Look." She dropped the CUM in panic and ran. When she burst onto the bridge, gasping, Rourke caught her by the shoulders. "What happened?" Kira's face was pale. "Something's here, Captain, not a person, not alive, but moving. It spoke with your voice." Damon cursed under his breath. Mara stared at the empty void outside the viewport. Rourke felt the weight of command pressing harder than ever. Lock down the ship. All corridors under security protocol. No one goes anywhere alone. They followed the order. For the next hours, every crew member moved in pairs. Doors were sealed. Lights stayed on at full power, but it didn't matter. The whispers started, at first faint like echoes from another room. Then louder voices calling each crew member by name. Private messages. Personal details only close friends would know. Mara heard her dead sister's voice calling from the CUM room. Damon swore he heard his childhood dog barking in the ventilation ducts. Captain Rourke didn't tell anyone what. He heard, but in the quiet of his cabin, he listened to his own voice, whispering things he couldn't bear to repeat. Then came the cold spots. Entire rooms freezing over in seconds, their walls misting with ice. And in those moments, the ship's power would dim. Gravity would flicker, and strange shapes would appear at the edges of vision. Kira described them as like people, but made of holes in the world. Could see through them, yet the shape was clear. They never moved quickly. They never rushed. Every time you blinked, they were closer. On the third day after the alien ship, the Aurora's Edge received another transmission. Mara almost didn't answer it, fearing what she'd hear. But the captain ordered her to open the channel. Static filled the bridge, then a voice emerged. It was Elias Rourke again, but this time he was screaming. It was a horrible, raw sound, filled with pain. Then, in a hoarse whisper, "Stop the engines. Turn back. They're in the dark between stars. They've been waiting." The transmission ended. Every eye turned to the real Rourke. He just stared at the floor, his knuckles white. "Captain," Damon said, breaking the silence, "we need to leave this sector. Now." Rourke didn't answer right away. He was thinking about the dead alien ship, the warm coffee. The Aurora's Edge moved through the dark stretch of space like a lone candle in an endless night. Every corridor felt colder now. Every sound seemed louder. The crew didn't talk much anymore. They avoided the subject of the alien ship. Fear had a way of creeping in, even in silence. It started with Ensign Marta Vega. She was on night watch in the engine room when she heard someone calling her name. "Marta." The voice was soft, almost tender. She turned, expecting to see one of her crewmates. No one was there. She laughed nervously to herself and went back to monitoring the power levels. "Marta." The voice came again. This time, it was right behind her ear. She spun around, her heart pounding. Again, nothing. By the time she reached the captain's quarters, her hands were shaking. "Work." Listened to her report without saying a word. His face was pale, but his eyes were calm. "You're not the first to hear it," he finally said. Her breath caught in her throat. "Who else?" Half the crew, Rourke admitted. "The voices always sound like someone you trust. They're always close, and they're never seen." By the next day, the whispers spread. Crew members were hearing friends, family, even people long dead. Chief Engineer Dallin swore he heard his wife, who had died years ago. She had told him to go outside, out into space. When they found him, he was suiting up, ready to open the airlock. After that, Rourke ordered all crew to work in pairs. No one was allowed alone in any section of the ship. But that didn't stop the whispers. The ship's AI Athena began to glitch. Its calm, programmed voice was interrupted by strange clicks and low growls between words. Sometimes, its voice would suddenly shift into the captain's or another crew member's, delivering messages that made no sense. "Open the doors. They're waiting. They're not here for you. They're here for me. Don't trust the light." The engineering team ran diagnostics, but the system logs showed nothing wrong. Athena was perfectly functional, and yet it was speaking things it shouldn't know. Athena mess hall, the crew gathered for a tense briefing. "This is more than a ghost story," Rourke said, standing at the front. "Whatever boarded that alien ship, boarded ours too. Just can't see them." He activated the holodisplay, showing scans of the alien vessel they had explored. There was no damage to the hull, no signs of forced entry, but in the infrared scans, shadows moved. They were thin, long-limbed figures, bending and twisting in impossible shapes. Their heads were smooth and featureless. No one had seen them in normal light. "They exist in some spectrum we can't detect without special filters," Rourke explained. "But they're here. They're watching." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. "How do we fight something we can't see?" asked Vega. "We find their weakness," Rourke said, his voice steady. "Everything alive has one." That night, in the dim-lit corridors of the Aurora's Edge, Rourke walked alone, holding a handheld scanner. Needed proof. The whispers came quickly. "Elias." It was his sister's voice, soft and warm, the way he remembered it before she died. "Come home. You don't belong here." He ignored it, keeping his eyes on the scanner. "You can't stop them," the voice said. This time it wasn't his sister. It was his own voice. "You've already lost." The scanner beeped. A faint shape appeared on its small display. Something moved ahead of him. The air rippled as if heat distorted the space. Rourke's hand tightened on his sidearm. "I know you're there," he said quietly. The thing stepped closer. For a split second, through the distortion, he saw Jadis. It tall, pale, its limbs bending backward like broken bones. Its skin shimmered like liquid silver. It had no mouth, no eyes, yet he felt it staring straight into him. Then it vanished. Rourke returned to the bridge, his face grim. "They're real," he told the senior crew. "And they're inside our ship." Before anyone could respond, Athena's voice cut in over the speakers. "Captain Rourke," the AI said, its tone flat. "There is someone outside the ship." The crew froze. "What do you mean outside? It's floating, no suit, human life signs detected." The holoscreen flashed to life, showing an external camera feed. Out in the void, drifting near the hull, was Captain Elias Rourke, perfectly still, perfectly alive, and smiling. The real Rourke stood on the bridge, staring at himself in the cold vacuum of space. The Silent One's approach. The Aurora's edge floated in the black silence between the stars. Inside, the crew worked with nervous focus. Every sound, a footstep, a chair squeak, the hum of the engines felt too loud. Captain Elias Rourke stood at the bridge's main window, looking out into the endless dark. He didn't like what the sensors were showing. "Tell me that's a glitch," he said to Lieutenant Marin at the control station. She checked the readings twice. "No, sir. Something's following us." "Several somethings." The captain turned. "Ships." Marin shook her head. "Not exactly. They don't look like ships. They're just shapes." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Shapes in space usually meant debris, asteroids, or cloaked vessels. But these readings pulsed, like they were alive. Dr. Cade, the ship's science officer, stepped forward. "They're moving in formation, keeping exactly 20,000 kilometers behind us. We speed up, they speed up. We slow down. They slow down. Have they sent any signal?" Elias asked. Cade's voice was low. "No light, no radio, no heat. They're like shadows, shadows that move." The captain felt a cold knot in his chest. "Helm, increase speed. Let's see how far they're willing to follow." The Aurora's edge engines roared softly, pushing the ship forward. The shadow shapes followed without hesitation. In the mess hall, whispers spread fast. Crew members spoke in half sentences, glancing over their shoulders. "They were right there," one engineer muttered. "I saw them on the screen. They don't even look solid," a young communications officer added. "What if they're the Silent Ones? The ship we found. Maybe this is what happened too." Them, the name passed around like a curse, Silent Ones. Nobody said it too loud. On the bridge, the captain gave orders to scan the shapes again. "High-frequency radar, then thermal," he said. The scans returned nothing. No surface. No heat signature. No metal. "It's like they're made of nothing," Marin whispered. Dr. Cade frowned at the readings. "Or something we can't detect. Something that hides in the empty spaces between particles. Something that was here before the stars even formed." The captain didn't like where this was going. "Cade, I need facts, not ghost stories." But deep down, he felt the weight of the same thought. Hours passed. The shadows stayed. Then, without warning, one of the shapes moved. It didn't accelerate in a normal way. It slid, as if space itself carried it forward. It came within a few kilometers of the Aurora's edge. The ship's lights flickered. All across the vessel, systems began to glitch. Screens showed strange patterns. Audio systems picked up faint breathing noises. Doors opened and closed on. "Their own report," Elias barked. "Power fluctuations across decks 2 and 4, Marin shouted. "Intrusion in the ship's network." Cade added, "It's rewriting our data logs, deleting our records of the dead alien ship." The captain gripped the console. "Shut it down. Pull the ship into manual control." Down in the engineering bay, Chief Engineer Leora worked frantically to keep systems online. She pulled open a panel and froze. Inside, the wiring was moving. Thin black threads slithered along the cables like veins. When she tried to touch them, they vanished, as if they were only shadows. She called up to the bridge, her voice shaking.
"Captain?"
"I think they're inside the ship." The bridge went silent. Elias made a decision fast. Seal all airlocks. Shut down non-essential systems. They feed on power, we're going to starve them. One by one, the lights dimmed until the Aurora's edge was almost in darkness. The crew worked in red emergency lighting. For a moment, the shadows outside slowed. Then they began to grow. They spread outward, forming vague shapes, tall, thin figures with elongated heads. Their forms were never solid, always shifting, like smoke underwater. A voice came over the ship's speakers. It's not a human voice, not even a sound that should be possible. It was like thousands of whispers layered together. "You found what?" "Was not meant to be found," it said. Every crew member froze. Dr. Cade tried to respond. "Who are you? What do you want?" The whisper voice answered. "You carry the memory of the ones before you. You will give it to us." Elias stepped forward, jaw tight. "We don't give up our dead, and we don't give up our past." The voice didn't argue. It simply said, "Then we will take it." Suddenly, crew members began to feel lightheaded. Memories slipped like water through their fingers. Names, faces, and places from their lives blurred. On the bridge, Marin clutched her head. I can't remember my sister's face." Elias knew they had minutes at most. "Get us out of here," he ordered. "Full burn. Aim for the nearest star system." Engines roared, flooding the ship with light and power. The shadows outside rippled violently, shrinking back as if burned. The Aurora's edge shot forward into the dark, but the shapes did not vanish. They followed, always at the same distance. In the silence that followed, Captain Elias knew one thing. Whatever the silent ones were, they weren't just foe. The corridors of Aurora's edge felt tighter than usual. Every step echoed, and every sound seemed wrong. Captain Elias Rourke led the small team toward the engineering bay, where the strange energy spikes had been detected. The air was colder. Here, frost clung to the walls. Lights flickered, buzzing like dying insects. "Something's drawing power from the main core," said Chief Engineer Mara, her voice low. She kept glancing over her shoulder. "But it's not our system doing it." They rounded a corner and froze. In the middle of the hallway, 3 shimmering shapes stood perfectly still. Their bodies were tall, thin, and almost invisible, like heat waves in the air. Every time the light flickered, they seemed closer. No one spoke. No one moved. Then one of the shapes tilted its head. A faint hiss echoed through the corridor, and the lights went out completely. Darkness. "Back," Elias whispered. "Fall back now." They ran, boots pounding against the metal floor. Behind them came a sound, not footsteps, but a slow dragging noise, like claws scraping along the walls. The air grew heavier, pressing against their chests. They reached the engineering bay and slammed the door shut.
Ara locked the magnetic
Seals. "What were those things?" asked Lieutenant Harper, panting. "Silent ones," Elias said, his voice grim. "Or whatever killed the alien crew we found. But how are they here?" Harper stopped. His eyes went wide. From the corner of the room, a whisper drifted out. "You brought us." Everyone turned toward the sound. There, standing in the shadows, was another Elias Rourke. Same face, same uniform, same cold, hard stare. The real Elias raised his weapon. "You're not me," the copy smiled, a strange, slow curl of the lips that didn't feel human. "We are what's left after silence takes the breath away. We wear your shape to keep the others calm. It doesn't work on you." Hands shook as she reached for the emergency power controls. "What do you want?" she asked. "To stay," the thing said simply, "and to feed." Before anyone could react, the copy dissolved into mist, flowing toward the power core. Alarms blared. The room shook. "They're draining the ship," Mara shouted. "If they take enough power, I don't even know what they'll do." Elias grabbed a plasma torch and motioned for Harper to follow him. "We cut them off from the core. Now." They opened a panel in the floor, crawling into the narrow maintenance shaft beneath the engineering deck. The hum of the core grew louder, deeper, almost like a heartbeat. Halfway through, Harper froze. "Captain, we're not alone down here." Elias turned and saw glowing white eyes in the dark. The air shimmered, and one of the silent ones unfolded itself from the shadows, blocking the way forward. Didn't move quickly. It didn't have to. The space was too narrow to fight. and the only way out was behind them, where another pair of glowing eyes had just appeared. "We're trapped," Harper whispered. The silent ones began moving in, slow and steady. The air turned freezing cold. Elias could see his breath. His lungs burned with each inhale. His mind raced. He remembered the strange scratches on the alien ship, feared the silent ones. But there had also been another mark beside them, a circle with a slash through it. Could it mean something? A warning? Elias pulled a flare from his belt, struck it, and the narrow shaft filled with blinding red light. The silent ones hissed, pulling back slightly. "They don't like light," Elias said. With the flare in one hand, he shoved forward, forcing one of the creatures to retreat. Harper followed close behind. The light didn't stop them completely, but it slowed them. They reached the core chamber. It pulsed with energy, and in the center, the mist shape of the Eliascopy was growing larger, darker, almost solid. "Now," Elias shouted. Mara, already at the controls, rerouted the power into the external lights. Every hallway and chamber on the ship lit up with harsh, searing brilliance. The silent ones screamed a sound that didn't belong in this universe and dissolved into thin air. For a moment, silence returned. But then, a whisper echoed through the speakers in a voice that was not human. "Light fades. We will wait." The lights flickered. Elias's stomach dropped. They hadn't destroyed them. They'd only bought time. The final silence, the Aurora's edge drifted through the cold darkness. Every system hummed quietly, too quietly. The crew moved slowly, whispering without even realizing it. They all felt the same thing. They were not alone. Captain Elias. Rourke stood on the bridge, staring at the starfield. His reflection in the glass looked pale and hollow-eyed. Commander Vega came to stand beside him. "They're here, aren't they?" she asked. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The last 2 days had been a nightmare. Crew members had vanished from their posts without sound, without a trace. Security cameras showed them walking down a corridor, then fading like mist. Under sunlight, in the mess hall, untouched meals sat where they had been abandoned. In the engine bay, tools lay mid-repair. The ship felt less and less like their ship. "A final plan: we can't fight something we can't see," said Vega during the emergency meeting. Only 12 crew members remained. Lieutenant Harris, hands shaking, pointed at the strange symbols they had copied from the alien vessel. "I think these aren't warnings," he said. "I think they're instructions. Some kind of defense against the silent ones." The captain frowned. "Defense?" Harris nodded. "Every ship that's been attacked left these symbols behind. If we do the same, maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll make them leave us." The crew spread across the ship, carving the alien words into walls, doors, even their own bunks. The ship's metal groaned as if it didn't like the scratches. The last warning that night, Elias woke to a voice in his ear. It was his own voice. "They can't be stopped," it whispered.
Ow.
"They can only be invited." Slowly, he turned on the light. His cabin was empty. The door was still locked. His breath felt cold in his lungs. He walked to the bridge and found Vega there, wide-eyed. "I just saw Harris," she whispered. "He was standing in the corridor. But when I called his name, he smiled. His mouth kept smiling, but the rest of him, out. It melted away." Elias looked at the crew list. Harris's name blinked red. Missing. They come the ship's lights. Dimmed without warning. Air grew heavy, pressing on their chests. A sound like slow breathing filled every corridor. Not loud, not fast. Just steady. The kind of sound that makes you want to hold your own breath. Shapes moved in the darkness, shadows that weren't made by anything. They stretched across the walls and floors, bending and twisting until they looked almost human. But their heads were wrong, their arms were too long, and their eyes. Their eyes were black voids that swallowed the light. One by one, the crew froze, unable to move. Their lips parted as if to scream, but no sound came out. The shadows touched them. Gently, and they were gone. Choice soon, only Elias and Vega remained. "They want the ship," Vega whispered, pressing her back against the bridge wall. "If we destroy it, maybe they can't spread." Elias looked at the controls. His hands shook. If they triggered the self-destruct, they'd die here. Maybe it would save others. Maybe. The breathing grew louder. Something was in the doorway now, a shadow, tall and still, watching them. A voice filled the bridge, soft and calm. "Invite us, and we will let you live." Vega's eyes widened. "Don't listen," she began. But then she vanished. No sound, no struggle, just gone. The Indalaya stood alone. His finger hovered. Over the self-destruct, the breathing surrounded him. He could feel cold shapes moving just beyond sight. "Invite us," his own voice whispered again. He closed his eyes. He thought about the alien ship, about the symbols, about the coffee, cups left half full, about what would happen if the Aurora's Edge ever made it back to port with them still inside. He pressed the button. The ship's alarm screamed through the corridors. The shadows shifted, restless now. The breathing turned into something else, a hiss, angry and sharp. The Aurora's Edge exploded in a bright flash of light, scattering its pieces into the dark. Aftermath weeks later, a patrol vessel found the debris. The wreck was cold, empty. No bodies, no survivors. Among the floating scraps, they recovered a single panel of metal with words scratched deep into it. In dozens of alien languages, fear, the silent ones, patrol captain ordered it locked away in their archives. That night as he slept, he heard slow, steady breathing in his cabin.